If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars Digital Card Trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z and Corey Clubb, the podcast you're looking for. This is, yes.
For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The force is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
At last! Where have you been?
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Now it is time to introduce two great friends who are back by request at our second annual Star Wars Reads Day event. These two guys over here have interviewed some of the most talented voice actors, and creators in the Star Wars franchise. In 2016, they were voted number one in the People's Choice Award for Star Wars Podcast. Here are co-hosts Corey Clubb, winner of the 2016 podcast logo design, science fiction author and Star Wars guru, and Dan Zehr, who's a writer for StarWars.com and Star Wars Insider. You also might know Dan from the Rogue One Target ad last month. Star Wars fans, let's give a round of applause for Coffee with Kenobi.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Star Wars Reads Day 2016. Welcome to show number 59 of Coffee with Kenobi. It's our live show today. We are a Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. I'm Dan Z, and with me is my good friend and co-host, Corey Clubb.
Hello, friends, and a huge thank you to Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Andrew Souse, Mediocre Jedi, Adam Leonard, Christopher Ripley, Sawara Schwan, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Struthers, Nick Dico, Aaron Harris, Mark Suter, Jesse, and Mike Audette for their contributions to our Coffee with Kenobi Patreon page. To help make this show possible, we help us provide a place Star Wars fans can have a voice. Plus, our Patreon contributors may receive a Coffee with Kenobi t-shirt, coffee mugs, when they are entered into the drawing to have a special Coffee with Kenobi episode of their very own. You can come up with a topic and host the show with us as we share our virtual cup of coffee with and talk Star Wars together. Check out our website and our show notes for more information.
In today's show, we got a lot of stuff going on for today. Freddie Prinze Jr. is going to join us later. So we got a lot of stuff going on here today. We're going to look at some brand new information. There's some new information yesterday about casting for the Han Solo film we're going to look at some new info from J.J. Abrams concerning Kylo Ren, Rogue One character posters. CWK correspondent Mike Audette shares his interview with Hasbro. CWK blogger Jason debuts a new feature where he looks at the state of Star Wars canon, and Nick Dico returns to talk Star Wars video games.
Yeah, in our collector news, we also look at the AT-ACT previews, discuss the Rogue One merchandise checklist, a new comic book series, and share our latest collectibles. So pull up a chair and grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting. You found something.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
All right, the first thing we want to look at, there was some huge news yesterday in the world of Star Wars, and there, of course, have been rumors and speculation about this, but we don't go into that sort of stuff. We did find out that Donald Glover has been cast as young Lando Calrissian in the Han Solo standalone film. Initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think there have been some rumors, of Donald maybe being up for the part or having interest in the part. I think he's a great cast for this role. I think it's cool to see Lando come back to the screen as well. And as a younger role, I think he can kind of take his own approach to the character and be able to have some fun.
I agree, and that when you get the announcement, of course, the opening thing says, "Hello, what have we here?" It's got to have that, right? So Donald Glover, he's an acclaimed actor. He's a Grammy-nominated artist, which is pretty fun. So Mason, my 3-year-old co-host, is helping me out right now. Say hi, Mason.
Hi.
Thank you. Back to the show.
Yeah, what's up?
So the Han Solo film that we know is coming out, still untitled. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are in charge of this thing, and they're the masterminds behind the Lego film, which was great and very, very popular. Here's what they have described for Lando. I mean, basically, it's telling you where Lando is in the timeline.
Yeah, so it says here, the new film depicts Lando in a formative years as a scoundrel on the rise of the galaxy's underworld, years before the events of involving Han, Leia, and Darth Vader and The Empire Strikes Back, and his rise as the rebel hero and the Return of the Jedi. So sounds like it's maybe his coming up years, maybe meeting some folks, and we see some, obviously Han Solo will be in the film, we'll kind of see their budding relationship, and see how they kind of, I don't know, paint the galaxy red, I guess if you call it that.
Well, I do know, it was confirmed on another entertainment website, that we're going to see in this film how Han Solo gets the Falcon, how Lando loses the Falcon.
Yeah, that's, I think it's a big deal because that's always been up kind of between the two of those guys, and they've always had that friendship, that love-hate relationship as far as kind of one-upping each other, I guess, and gambling escapades and conquests and adventures. So it's kind of cool to see that backstory.
I love it. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, so for next news story, we talked about kind of an extra scene that was from Star Wars The Force Awakens from J.J. Abrams. Revealed kind of some interesting facts about Kylo Ren and his involvement in wanting to explain why he is who he is. And I think they mentioned that scene with Han Solo, him being in the throngs of good versus evil and light versus darkness. Mentioned was Kylo Ren just playing it up, kind of pretending to be good in that moment, and the J.J. Abrams explains that he's obviously looking to see where he lands, and that pull from the light side is called him, I guess you'll call it that, in that moment with Han Solo on the scaffolding there.
Sure. So basically, and I haven't got a chance to look at this part yet. So, and this is, if for people don't know, this is for the expanded Blu-ray edition of The Force Awakens. It's coming out very, very soon. And it's got a commentary by J.J. Abrams, which is incredible. That would be worth the price of admission by itself. Is he trying to tell us that Kylo Ren didn't originally plan to do what he did to his father?
Well, I think J.J. Abrams explains that he's gone too far at this point. And Kylo Ren's obviously given himself to the dark side. And Han Solo is just kind of a glimmer of hope, the last twinkle in his eye, meaning that, he's trying to get him to release himself and, become his son again. So I think it's he's gone too far.
So there's not even a tiny part of him at this moment. There's a chance, or is just a little chance, and then he looks at his dad and he just loses it.
Well, J.J. Abrams explains that he's at this point he's gone too far. There's no going back.
And you can kind of tell that by the way he baits him.
Sure.
And it's very upsetting. Our next news story is pretty cool. It came out last week, and we've got some brand new Rogue One character posters.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at these right now. If you're following along with us at home, we had basically Lucasfilm released an image of all of the main characters from Rogue One, not Darth Vader, but I think that's okay.
I don't know if he's a main character or not.
Well, exactly. But it does give us kind of a nice smattering of the characters, and I think one of the most interesting things about it is that it shows them with their faces superimposed with the Death Star planes.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to see those. They're kind of like a black, almost a black and white with a blue sheen over them. Each character is kind of represented with, like you said, the Death Star schematics over their faces. They look very intense, very serious. Has a nice red rogue symbol or a rebel symbol on the poster there, and they're all looking very intense.
Was there a particular one on these images that you thought, wow, this really brings it home for me?
It's interesting because some of these images I've kind of already seen. I feel like I've seen already. They're not necessarily new to me. And if folks have gone to the StarWars.com website, they can check these out. We'll post a link to our show notes. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see these up and close and personal. But nobody's really smiling. Everybody's very, very serious. I've got K2SO in there.
K2SO isn't smiling?
He's not. I don't think he's smiling.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, but very frowny faces, very serious poses, and it's definitely something real going on here.
And we'll go down the list, and this is the main cast that we know about already, but Jyn Erso features off. She looks very serious, very prominent. It's just interesting mix. I don't see a lot of innocence in this face, but I see some determination in someone who is not going to be assuaged to do something she doesn't want to do.
I like that. Yeah, it's interesting because she's the main figure of this film, and she's maybe she's caught up in something she doesn't necessarily want to do. Maybe she's looking to kind of just be done with it in a sense. But on the other hand, we saw the latest trailer, there's some personal reflection there, I think, for her. There's a lot going on.
True. Then we have Baze Malbus, and he's pretty much the bodyguard or the lookout for Chirrut Inwe, your new favorite character.
Yeah,
he's replaced Krennic, I think.
Yeah.
So tell me about his look?
Yeah, he's a straight on look at the picture here. So he's looking right at the audience and looking at them intensely. I think he seems like a very serious character again too. He's very interesting to the fact that he's looking to take on the mission in a serious way and do his job right as a kind of a hired mercenary of sorts.
Very true. And then he just looks like someone that you don't want to mess with.
Yeah,
he looks like someone you want to have on the rebellion, I would say.
Yeah.
What about the next one? We have Bodhi Rook.
Yeah, Bodhi Rook. So he's interesting because he looks of all these characters, he looks the most innocent. The fact that he is, looking to just play his part as well, but also maybe he comes with some unknown qualities that make him a little bit more innocent in the factor that he's maybe not sure what he's doing. Maybe just wants to help out, but not necessarily sure how to do that.
Well, and there were some Entertainment Weekly said that he's basically betrayed the Empire, and he's decided there's got to be conflict. There's got to be that
innocence
conflict.
and conflict. I think too. He's caught up in the struggle
because you're in there with the Empire, and then you decide this is not for me. This is not my philosophy. I actually want to treat people with respect.
Right.
So his story is going to be fascinating. Next, we have Captain Cassian Andor, the handsome rogue, if you will.
Yeah, he's definitely got like this kind of this Han Solo swagger going on for him a little bit. He's got definitely the leather jacket going on, and it's interesting the fact that he's the captain of everything. But I don't know what folks think, but he seems like he needs some help too to do his job. So it's interesting to see that as well. But rolling on to the next one here, we've got, like I said, we have Chirrut Inwe. He's the kind of the blind monk of Rogue One. It's interesting to see him too because he's a Force follower, but also he kind of seems to be kind of in with his ragtag team of group of people and kind of finding his way through the forces of the Empire. Next we have, again, we talked about K2SO, the resident droid on the team, and he's being captured by motion capture, which is kind of interesting to see him kind of on the screen there, and he's taller than all the other characters. And he's interesting enough. I think his face is interesting. They have a close-up of his eyes and everything kind of lighting up, looking like bright lights. So that's interesting to see that as well. Moving on down the list here, we have another character. We have Saw from Rogue One. We saw him most recently in the longest trailer there, and he was kind of giving some pep talk to Jyn and seeing how she would kind of carry on the Force and carry on with the rebels to be able to make sure that they carry out their mission. He's kind of seems like the legendary figure as far as he's seen wars, he's seen a lot of things, and it's interesting that way because we don't know where his background is either. You don't know where he lies as far as what who he holds true to. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Dan. Dan's walking around right now. He's walking around. We'll get a little quick commentary on Dan. He's trying to find someone. That's okay. We'll move ahead here as far as some of the other characters. The last one we have here is Director Krennic. Obviously, interesting enough that he's the only Empire-based character in these posters, and he has a lot to do with this so far too as well. He's in the latest trailer we saw. He seems to play a large role on the Empire and controlling kind of what's going on with the creation of the Death Star. So it's interesting to see him in these posters and him be the only person for the Empire. It seems like he's kind of by himself. Is he doing his own thing? Are they kind of setting him up? I don't know. There's a lot of questions going on there, a lot of things going on, but Dan has returned, so we'll get his thoughts on these as well.
Hi, what I miss?
About half the characters, that's all. Half
the characters is so. After seeing these posters, is there anyone that you were more intrigued by than before you saw them, or is it kind of the same?
It's a good question. It's kind of the same for me, I think. It's cool to see this type of promotion, I guess, if folks have seen these. It's cool to see these posters come out and kind of focus on these new characters. I think they're still kind of fresh in people's minds. I think they're able to, get new characters in our mindset as far as being fan, carrying them through the Star Wars galaxy and showing us the kind of where they come from and seeing where they originate from. So these posters kind of help with that.
Very good. Yes. So thank you again for flying the ship for me. We're taking our little fan around for us. And right now, let's go into our collector's news segment and sort of talk about what's going on in the world of collectibles.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back Collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
So the first thing we had a video that people here can't necessarily see, but when you do hear this on the air, you can watch the video. It's the ACT video preview that Hasbro has released. So we're going to play right now and look at it and sort of see what we think, because it looks like it's going to be something that people are going to want to rush out and watch.
Hi, I'm Steve Evans, Design Director for Star Wars.
And hi, I'm Mark Boudreau, Senior Principal Designer for Star Wars.
We got a huge new toy.
Yep.
Well, you've all seen the trailer for the new Rogue One movie, and I'm sure you're as excited as Mark and I were about seeing a certain old friend up on the screen, the AT-AT. It looks slightly different from the one I remember.
Actually, it's a variant of the AT-AT. It's called the AT-ACT.
Of course.
And the C is for cargo. The cargo box itself can open. It allows area for figure transport. The cargo box can actually be removed as well, placed on the ground, and now you have a bunker with a zip line.
Very cool.
We can light up the
that classic
cannon.
sound.
That's not all. It holds 4 Nerf darts.
It's an AT-AT Walker, right?
Yes, it is.
I've been dreaming of a walking AT-AT since I was 8 years old.
Absolutely. Because it is a character, we wanted to have the head moving back and forth when it walked.
Cool. And that kind of lumbering, searching,
it's a hunter.
menacing. Yes. You also get 3 exclusive figures. Jyn Erso, an Imperial astromech droid, and you get this incredibly cool AT-ACT driver. That's not all. We've actually introduced smart device control to the AT-ACT.
Oh, wow. High tech.
There we have it. Hasbro's first walking AT-ACT. Hugely proud to work on it with you. You're absolutely going to love it. You're going to love it.
Wow. Yes. I strongly encourage you that you go on the show notes and look at this video, because tell me initial thoughts on this thing. Are you going to start saving your pennies?
It's interesting because I'm not a huge collector, as our fans know that. But this is pretty cool. This is something that you can play with probably for hours. But I like the new idea of it being a cargo base and kind of coming apart and being almost 2 toys in one, and collecting all the other exclusive characters that come with it. And the other thing too is, like, I think something we talked about early on was the AT-ATs coming on the screen, and it gives us a new way to kind of look at this interesting toy.
I liked it. I don't know that I've ever heard that they said that the C stands for cargo. Had you heard that before? There's been so much information. Maybe I just missed that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that before. It's interesting to see that too. Like I said, it's almost like 2 things in one. And as toys evolve into something that's, to kind of play out scenes and such like that, it makes me interesting. Like, will this be something we see, on the film, and them using this prototype thing and getting around and using the cargo base, and it's pretty neat.
There's so many things. I mean, it's smartphone controlled.
Yeah, that was cool.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
The Nerf thing.
Yep.
Wow. And then those exclusive figures that you talked about. Dan. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it walks by itself.
Yeah, that's cool too, I think, because it's something that's kind of lost, I guess, sometimes in toys, especially this large of a toy. It's pretty large to be able to play with this and make it walk yourself as a person, and be able to, play and get along with that. But, to have it walk and use a smartphone or iPad device to be able to make it walk is pretty ingenious.
I saw a Chris Pirillo video about this, and he was playing with it, and it's just, the sound effects, I think the price point What we're hearing is that the price point is going to be $300.
Oh, that's high.
That is high. I mean, there's a lot going on to it, obviously.
So how much, if you remember, how much was the Millennium Falcon they put out?
The Falcon was $150 or so. Yeah. I got it when it was on clearance for $85.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
I'm hoping that will happen with the AT-ACT, but I've never seen an ad out of any kind on clearance. Do you guys want to come up here and weigh in on the ad? Have you seen this thing? Come on up, buddy. Have you seen the video yet for what it does? Are you interested in this?
Yeah. Well, not that it's $300, but it's a little pricey for just an ad.
I agree. Do you think maybe you could open a lemonade stand and get some money and buy it that way?
I could probably
That's
get
right, goals.
half of
goals.
it.
That's
half
right.
Of it.
Goals without a plan are just a wish, and you have a goal. I like that. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what brings you here to Star Wars Reads Day.
Well, I'm Palmer, and I love Star Wars and Jar Jar Binks. And I just wanted to come since tomorrow's my sister's birthday. We have to go to a birthday party, and I've always had to miss this. And it's just cool to be here and see everybody, and, of course, this podcast, because I've never been on a podcast before, and I've always wanted to. And it's just, I collect not the action figures and stuff. I collect Lego Star Wars toys.
What are some of the ones that you have that you really, really are proud of?
Well, I have the Falcon, the original one. I have the TIE Fighter, X-Wing, AT-AT, as we call it, AT-AT.
You're good. According to Pablo Hidalgo, you're good either way, so you're in good company.
Yep. My dad, he has an AT-AT foot. He broke his foot.
You wear it well, my friend.
And I'm also very proud of all the minifigures that I get for Star Wars and make little videos. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's cool to be able to do that. My sons are big into playing Legos as well, and they do that same little. They have they set up little scenes and whatnot, and play the figures out, and so it's a lot of fun. It's very cool you're doing that. Very awesome.
It's why my basement's not clean.
We understand. That's not going to go away.
How that works?
Just warn your future wife. It's not going to go away. Very good. Well, hey, thanks so much. And maybe at the end of the show, come up and answer some questions for us. Thank you. Let's hear it for Palmer.
So, Dan, as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of stuff coming out from Hasbro, obviously around, celebrating the release of the film. They've released a huge checklist of sorts for all the stuff that's coming out from the past Force Friday or Rogue Friday, they're calling it. Listen to that show from our last show, kind of our hunting down and our late night escapades.
Right, tied into our Rogue One trailer analysis for the second
right.
trailer. Yeah, Hasbro sent us this pretty much a little less than a week after Force Friday or Rogue Friday or what have you. And it's fairly detailed. It's got all the 3 3/4 inch scale figures. It's got the 2-packs, the vehicles, the 12-inch figures, the electronic dual figures with vehicles, and all the Black Series stuff. There's just a whole bunch going on here.
It truly is. And like you said, too, there's a lot going on as far as the first wave and whatnot. I know the first wave is out there in stores now. I went out not too long ago and looked for, see if they would release some other stuff as far as the next wave and whatnot, but I don't think that necessarily is listed here. Let's see. I don't think they have Wave 2, Dan. So, yeah, they've got some exclusives as far as Target and Toys R Us having stuff available for folks to come out and being able to, go out and check some of this new stuff out. We talked about this on, again, our Rogue One Force Friday, some of the stuff they had exclusive. Any of the stuff that you've picked up lately that you did not get a chance to check out, Dan, in stores or something you're looking for?
I every time I go, if I see the Hera Syndulla with the A-Wing, I want to get that. That was one of my favorite episodes of Rebels anyway, but it's just, it's a beautiful thing. And the Hera figure is as well documented. Wasn't necessarily all over the place.
Right, and I think they're kind of upending that as far as I seem to see it a lot of other places. There's been a lot of there's a Lego figure of her and whatnot, and they're kind of trying to keep things stocked as well. I've been out multiple times since Rogue Friday, and seen a lot of stores recently have a lot of stuff on the shelves to be able to go out and check out. And this checklist just informs us of all the stuff that they have that are currently available and stuff that to come.
Don't you kind of wonder, like, either they just got more merchandise or maybe it's just not flying off the shelves like it was before? I mean, there's
And maybe
definitely not
that's-
as much
yeah.
of it. There's
Well, like we
definitely
said
not as much.
before, too, like some of these characters are still fresh in our minds. I think that we're still trying to get to know them in some sense. It's hard to buy something that you're necessarily invested in as a fan or a fan of that character, essentially. So I think you just kind of buy on a whim or maybe buy on like a anticipation as far as like, I might like this person or this looks cool or, I think some of folks did that. I know I did that with Captain Phasma from Force.
Yes, I remember.
Force Awakens. So, yeah.
Didn't I find the 6-inch one for you?
Yeah, I've still got it. Yeah,
At Walgreens.
Oh, Walgreens.
Oh, yeah. Don't you have a 6-inch Kanan for me?
I do. I have a 6-inch Kanan for you. So
yay!
So we need to exchange some fan-friendly stuff here.
It's if Coffee with Kenobi had a Secret Santa, it probably wouldn't be really secret because you and I are the hosts. So, I wonder if
what
Corey
this is.
got
Yeah,
me.
who got this? Yeah.
Oh, interesting. We can incorporate the bloggers.
Yeah, that's true.
That would be fun.
Sure.
That would be pretty intense, but it's a fun idea. Our next story, we're going to eventually incorporate Zeke from Zeke's Comics over here, and hopefully he can hear us on the microphone.
Hello.
But we want to talk about Star Wars and Star Wars comics. Before we go into our discussion segment, we're going to have 2 discussion segments on the show. First was Zach from Zeke's Comics and Games, which is the official comic book shop of Coffee with Kenobi.
There you go.
Ho ho.
Sure.
And then we're also going to have an interview we're recording later with Freddie Prinze Jr., star of Star Wars Rebels, who voices Kanan Jarrus. So it's going to be a really fun thing to talk about. But the Dr. Aphra series is great, and we don't do spoilers, but Star Wars Darth Vader 25 has been out for a couple weeks.
Okay.
So if you haven't read Darth Vader 25 and you haven't seen what's going on, that would fast forward probably about 10 minutes or so, perhaps.
Sure.
And because we're going to talk about it. And you have been warned. 3, 2, 1. Aphra lives. In an incredible turn of events, she is sent out of the airlock by Vader.
Okay.
And I won't tell you how she survives, but she survives. And that's huge because she's so popular. I was very fortunate. You're welcome. Have a good night. I was very fortunate to talk to Kieran Gillen, who is the author of Darth Vader, and he's going to be writing the upcoming Aphra series. And he talked about the influence that Indiana Jones had on her, how he takes archetypes and kind of tweaks them a little bit, and because Star Wars is full of archetypes, and it's going to be cool. It comes out in December.
That's interesting, too, because it's interesting to see a new character that's spun out of these comics that have been out for a while now, and folks and friends are picking them up and reading them. It's interesting, too, to see this kind of this new characters really come to the spotlight, I think, too, and be able to showcase them on this type of medium.
Well, as we talked about with some of the Legends line, when there were new characters introduced, I didn't open up to them like I have since the new canon has sort of evolved.
Yeah.
And Aphra, I mean, sort of similar trend for me. At first, I thought, okay, whatever, they're sort of forcing this. And then I grew to really like her. Once she got away from being subservient to Vader and being kind of a sycophant and becoming her own identity, her own individual, I thought she was really cool. She appeared in the Star Wars series with the Escape from Prison, where she got to interact with Leia a lot. Okay. And she just come into her own, and of course she's got BT and 000 with her. She's cool, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
What I guess I'm not totally up to date on the comics myself, and she sounds interesting to me. What you said, there were some influences of Indiana Jones in her character. What type of archetype is that for her?
Sure.
In this role?
Well, she is a space archaeologist, and there's even a scene where a droid is chasing her, and it looks like it's the ball, right? And it's not by accident.
Not BB-8, though, right?
No. Okay. And Kieran Gillen said that when he was at Lucasfilm, he saw some of the Indiana Jones stuff, and he thought, "Oh, Indiana Jones, that's a good character.
Uh-huh.
He's very determined, thinks outside the box, kind of rough and tumble,
Sure.
And so she is like that. And I guess what they're saying now is even though she's called Dr. Aphra, there's some question if her doctorate is authentic, which kind of adds to her.
Yeah, what does she get her degree
mischievous,
from?
if she even has one.
Just a title, maybe?
Yeah,
like
or maybe she's just trying to be slick. Yeah, Dr. Doom. Although Dr. Doom...
I'm sure he has a degree, some of sorts.
Yeah, Latverdia. How do you say that? Laverdia?
Laveria?
Yeah, bless you.
Something like that.
Something.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if he's really a doctor or not. But Aphra, that's one of the things we're going to find out about. And I don't imagine Vader will make too many appearances in there because he's not going to let her get by again. And he thinks she's deceased, so
sure.
That would probably be a good way to sort of sell yourself so that it wasn't out there.
Fake your death.
That's right.
find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
So we're going to move into our discussion statement now. We really like to have Zach from Zeke's Comics come on down to the Coffee with Kenobi stage, and we're going to talk about some Star Wars comics.
Speaking of Star Wars comics, Dan, I picked up ones here and there, and not necessarily very. They're out and about. And I think, but the titles have grown over the time. As far as they've got a Han Solo series out, they've got a Poe Dameron series out. They're redoing the Force Awakens movie in comic form. That's pretty interesting. So it's interesting to see these kind of grow. I guess we talked about Dr. Aphra and seeing this grow as a medium in a large community like that, the comic book community. Seeing that grow like that, I guess what I wonder sometimes it does for your fandom maybe, and what it has done for the industry itself.
Just comment. I mean, we'll have Zach on and talk about what's done for the industry. And because I would like to, I know that they used to be always in the top 10, and thanks to Matt Mora and Jeff McGee from Comics with Kenobi, we see that they're not in the top 10 really that much anymore. So I don't know if the kind of this nostalgia wore off or what sort of happened there, but it's different. And I don't understand why, because the quality, I think, continues, perpetually grows and gets much stronger.
Okay.
But as what has it done for my fan? It's just kind of nice. I mean, the movies are still my bread and butter.
Yeah.
But I like them. I like the new characters they're adding. I like seeing Vader. He's not an anti-hero because he's still Vader, but trying to make him appealing when he's not supposed to be. Brian, have you read the Star Wars comics? Brian is a 501st member. He's going to be our guest here.
Member to be. Still working on the. Still working on the TK. So
tell me kind of your impressions of Star Wars comics.
I like them. I think any kind of thing that broadens storytelling and adds another layer to it, I think that's great. I also like when they bring in to the movies little hints and things of things outside of movies. I always thought that was pretty cool. So,
well, thank you. Good luck on that TK. I can't wait to see it. I think you and I are in the same boat trying to build
TK
these
boat,
things.
yeah,
the TK boat. Thank you, Brian. All right, so here he is, the owner of the official comic shop of Coffee with Kenobi. It's Zach, Zeke's Comics and Games. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So we were just talking. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, and since you are an expert, of course, with comics.
I wouldn't go that far, but I know a thing or two.
Well, I think you are. I think if you get paid to do something, you're an expert.
Huh. When did I get paid?
Oh, boy. Well, we'll have to talk about that
We'll talk about that later.
So one of the things that Corey wanted to know is, what is Star Wars doing for the comic book industry?
Star Wars right now has had a big boon since they've redone everything and they've changed all the continuity. As far as the local comic shop, my store, is concerned, we've seen huge business with a resurgence in graphic novels and brand new comics, things that are really good for all ages. So I've been very excited with all the changes they've made. I mean, obviously there's good, there's bad, but I would think overall the comic industry, even as a whole, is healthy right now, but Star Wars has got a big place, especially in our location.
Yeah, I think, too, it's interesting. We talked about big industries and whatnot, and moving Star Wars into the comic book medium, I guess. We talked about the Dr. Aphra comic coming out most recently. They had Canon comic just ended a little while ago. Vader's going strong, I think. Is there something that comes out of these comic books that does more so for you as a fan than maybe some of the films or maybe like a TV show?
Comics, any type of reading, I always think it can always be better than a visual medium, right? I mean, there's usually sometimes you can get more things. One of the things that I've been really into in comics, especially with Darth Vader's comic, is the moments when he is having conversations with the Emperor and he's frustrated, and you get to see that personal touch, I guess. You don't get to spend a lot of time in the movies with the characters because they're doing so many things.
It's as warm and fuzzy as it's going to get between those two.
Right, and it's entertaining, and there's no warm and fuzzies, but it's interesting.
25, I think, and you've read 25. 25 was an incredible issue, and it was one of the few times where you actually visibly see the Emperor proud of Vader. The reasons he's proud of Vader we won't get into, but it's pretty fascinating. Here's the thing. At the end of Darth Vader, there are 3 stories in number 25, and you and I were just talking about this. There's a very interesting third story. Kind of tell us what that story is and the feedback you're getting on it.
From what I understand, I had a couple people in last weekend reading it, and we all kind of sat around together, so I didn't get fully through everything, but from what I understand was, Vader went back to Tatooine, was wiping out all the Tusken Raiders, and then there was this big homage style statue that was dedicated to him. What I've noticed is there's a split. People are like, that's really interesting, especially since it's hard to end a Vader comic when we know where it's going to go for him. But I also have the other half that are very upset because they're like, well, why would they build a statue and bow to him? And I said, well, it's like a tribal thing. This person came in and destroyed everybody. He's obviously powerful. So it's kind of like he had a godlike presence, I guess would be the way to describe it.
It's alpha.
Yeah.
Right? And they're such a primal people. And, John Jackson Miller's Kenobi fleshed out Tusken Raiders to great detail, even though that's not canonical. But you can't help but think of that as an influence. So, yeah, it's interesting because you see Vader and you see this disturbing respect, I guess, for him and the thing that they build of him. Like the design of the Tuskens in this, some of them are traditional and some look a lot different, almost like they're wild, even more wild than a regular Tusken.
The Star Wars comics, to go back to the first point we were making, they do a good job at giving you access to things you'll never see in film. You get to spend a lot more time for the Tusken Raiders example, or, getting to enjoy Dr. Aphra and all these different characters that you'd never get to see. Now, I'm still waiting for Ahsoka to get her own comic book. She's got her own novel that I just picked up.
That's good. It's very good.
It is. So I think that as we get along with the movies coming out, we'll start seeing a lot more comics. I'm still waiting for a Luke Skywalker standalone book and things of that nature. So,
what would they do for that? Because I feel like Star Wars kind of is that.
You could always tell. There's a lot of things you can do. You could
stuff
before he's even found. You could spend a little bit of time with his life. They did that. Was it Shattered Empire last year?
Yeah,
and you got to spend.
That was great.
Yes.
Just one issue, but boy, what an appearance he made.
Right, and so you could do a 4-part miniseries with him right before he's found or right after he's found.
Yeah, and you can't help but wonder after Episode 8 comes out, the backstory or the front story, I guess, because it's in the future of Luke, what that's going to do for him, his relationship with Kylo Ren, with Ben Skywalker, the things that happened to get him to where he needs to be. Because in the Aftermath books, we don't see Luke. We see Han, but we don't see Luke.
It's all it's all in the way they do it. It's they've got a plan. They know where they're going with it. It's on a track. We would like it to come out faster than what it is.
Not me. I love it. I love milking it because then it just stretches. And that's more powerful.
Yeah. So, we've all loved the old expanded universe, and a lot of things have been said about dropping the old continuity for the new continuity, which I think it's a better idea.
I do too, because they're not restricted.
Yeah.
I want to say, too, they can. It's a gold mine. They can just pull from where they want from it. Most recently, Thrawn, they pulled from for Rebels, which is interesting, too, because I think it's really cool to see that, not as like it never existed. It's currently just something we can mine from and be able to create, pull ideas from and be able to see these characters again in canon now. So it's interesting that way.
It's a good point, and they're doing that. They're doing that in Rebels. They're doing that with the comics. They're doing a lot of stuff. I want to ask you two things about the comics before we move on to something new, because I want to talk about your shop. But what has been the most popular selling Star Wars book for you, and what is your favorite?
That's a good question. I would say the top selling is the main Star Wars title.
Even more than Vader?
Yes, I would say out of the subscribers I have in the store, I would say that has the highest number as of yesterday I checked. So that is doing better than I would say the rest of them. Personal favorite, I've loved the whole Darth Vader run. Even when I've missed a few issues, you can jump right back in and know exactly where you are. His story is a lot more interesting. I think that's my personal favorite.
It's a good choice. I would say before the last 10 issues of Vader, I would have probably said Lando. I thought Lando was brilliant. But I know some people didn't like the Chewbacca series. I love the Chewbacca series. The one that didn't respond to the most was the Leia series. Yep. I'd say issues 1, 4, and 5 I thought were exceptional, and 2 and 3 just didn't grab me in the same way. But that's okay. They're not all going to grab you the exact same way. It's okay to have preferences.
I'm one of those people that and this is beating the dead horse, but a lot of people want to see the old Republic stuff get brought back, like they were doing with Darth Bane, and they were contemplating doing Darth Revan from the Knights of the Old Republic video game, bringing him into Clone Wars before it ended. So I'm hoping that at some point you can do a comic book, do a novel, do something with them, because there's so many stories that you can tell that doesn't have to be just the movies.
I agree with you. So let's talk about Zeke's Comics and Games. It's my favorite place. I go once a week. One of my favorite highlights is talking to you because you know your stuff and you provide a welcoming environment, which is so great. What are some of the things that you sell besides Star Wars comics that fans love to see?
Well, we have obviously comic books. It is a comic book shop, and we sell things like miniatures games, board games, different collectibles throughout the year. We have a constant amount of product that we rotate in and out. Sometimes we carry apparel, trading card games, etc.
Well, it's interesting, too, is my kids have been there most recently for Pokemon cards. It has a resurgence in the medium. But I think you guys carry a wide variety of that. Plus, you have, what's interesting to me is you have gaming days. If folks come in and can play the games or get to know the games for the first time, and that kind of got me interested to you mentioned to me, I guess we had a conversation one time in the store. You said it was nice to have the adults or the parents join in and get to know the game so they get to know their kids better. And I have, so it's kind of interesting opening them for my kids.
One of the big things we push in the store is everybody being family friendly, and one of the biggest things I think in the comic book and gaming industry that's underutilized is that the parents getting involved. I mean, the worst thing you can see is somebody coming in, well, I don't know what Pokemon is or what this is, and it's like, but if you take the 5 minutes with me to teach you or at least show you some things, it makes the whole world of difference for the kids, and then they're heavily involved with something.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. I think it's parents and friends and family getting involved and having a good time for everybody, and you obviously provide that in your store, so thank you very much.
No problem. One of the last things I can tell you that we do at the shop is we host different events. We've done Free Comic Book Day, which is a nationwide event. We had our 1-year anniversary a month ago. We've done various events where we've brought local artists and authors into the store, so we really push like Central Illinois' creative community. But one of the things we're doing is on November 19th, we're doing a Star Wars Day.
Okay.
The Art at the Bodega is a painting studio behind us, and they're actually coming to the shop, and we're going to do basically a 2-hour session of teaching how to paint Boba Fett.
Wow.
We have the brand new trading card game, Star Wars Destiny from Fantasy Flight Games. We'll be doing demos of that throughout the day. Sweet. So we'll have prizes and all sorts of stuff going on. So we're really going to push a Star Wars Day on November 19th.
That's awesome. That's exciting to see that. It builds so much up in the community, brings in, like you said, local artists, and introduces new mediums and interesting things to young people and fans in general. So it's very, very cool that you're doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. So, I mean, we try to keep it interesting and unique. We don't want to just be that shop that you can just come in and buy your book and go. I don't believe in that. I think that there's more to go around if you build community and do more events to keep people engaged.
Very cool.
Well, thanks again so much, Zach, or Zeke, if you will, for being a part of Coffee with Kenobi. And you have actually a giveaway here for our guests here at Star Wars Reach Day. Take it away.
So right here, this comes from the personal collection of Zeke. He's a Kylo Ren die-cast Star Wars Elite Series. This thing I got at a Disney store in Chicago last year. Highly expensive, really awesome piece. And felt like today, it's very heavy. I thought it was a good time today as any to possibly give back to the community and obviously raffled this off to somebody.
Well, we appreciate that. So how do you want to do this? You want to do time to get some tickets we can do? We've got a big prize here, everybody. Go ahead and get out your tickets, if you will. We have the orange tickets. Zeke, go ahead and do the honors.
All right, here we go. Numbers are 8308184. Again, it's 8308184.
Orange ticket, 830184.
Going once. Anybody?
Oh, we've got a winner right here. Come on down.
Excellent.
What's your name, bud? Chris, congratulations. On behalf of Zeke's Comics, you have the Star Wars Elite Series Kylo Ren, an incredibly awesome figure. Thanks so much for supporting Star Wars and Zeke's Comics.
Very cool. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Very good. Now we'll move on to the studio portion of our show. If you are a huge Star Wars fan, and let's face it, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are, And if you love collecting Star Wars, the Star Wars Card Trader app from Topps is for you.
The best part, the Star Wars Card Tray app features incredible images from the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, and The Force Awakens. Every era you love is included on the app.
It's easy and a lot of fun too. Beloved characters, key scenes, and unforgettable moments are in every pack. Open the app every day and get free credits to spend on card packs from the Cantina, trade with your friends, and make new ones along the way as you continue to add to your Star Wars collection. And it's all free.
The variety makes it fun too. So chase what you love. Some of the latest packs include poster series, classic comic book series, helmet variety packs, and so much more. There are even exclusive cards you can get by completing sets, as well as special inserts and even autograph opportunities. Don't worry about missing the cards you love either, as you sign up for notifications right on the app.
The Star Wars Digital Card Trader collecting app from Topps can be downloaded for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to download the app and start your collection today.
The Star Wars Digital Card Trader app from Topps is available now. And remember, these are the cards you're looking for.
So, here with Hasbro at New York Comic Con. A couple questions that I had was, based off of last year with Force Awakens, you had a lot of different characters that you made figures out of. Constable Zuvio, who else was it?
Sarko
Plank. It seems with Rogue One, you're able to get more right into the main characters. Was that something where, with the Force Awakens story, they just kept it so much secret where you weren't able to, get the main characters? And with Rogue One, it's a standalone story. It's not part of the main saga. It's, everything's a little different with this movie. Was there any, working around with Lucasfilm where you were able to get more of the main cast? Because, all the, especially with Rogue Friday, it was Cassian, K2, Jin.
You've almost answered your own question. So you're right. You're absolutely right. The saga is a story that's taken place over 3 movies.
Yep.
We think, maybe more. Who knows? Over a certain number of years, and the individual stories. There are a lot more. There are a lot more main characters that we can address, and a lot of troopers that people kind of know and that are faceless. So we can seemingly get more characters out quicker, and there are sort of more. I'm not going to say top tier characters, but sort of front and center characters. Whether they're even a trooper, they may be background, but because we all know and love stormtroopers, they're A-list characters for us. So and there is, there is a difference in the way the story is being told that allows us to kind of do those more immediate characters for Rogue One than Force Awakens. And but we're respectful of the story. We play our part, as do all the licensees, in revealing that story to the fans. So you're pretty spot on.
Thanks. Yeah, I like how I went out to the store and I got a couple things, and I like the complete different variations that they have with the different troopers. I mean, obviously that's like a story thing too, but it's really cool that you're able to make the different variations, and especially compared to how the Force Awakens was, you had regular stormtrooper and the flame trooper and the snow trooper or whatever. But with this one, it's those ones were barely in the film. You know what I mean? With these ones, we know that they're actually definitely part of the story. There's scenes that are taking place on the beach where you're going to be fighting with the Scarif troopers. So it's sort of that you guys were able to really take that into effect and be okay, we know this is really into the story, so we can go full force and make, the troop leader, the regular, beach trooper and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool how you're able to, doing things like that.
Yeah.
So up next is episode 8. Obviously, you guys can't say anything about the story. Can you say that you have already started working with Lucasfilm on getting things from, Rian Johnson and things like that to start putting through, production and things like that? So,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we're well into our episode 8 line. Absolutely. So, in fact, we're already thinking beyond that. We're already thinking Han Solo. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's very different, today than it was a few years ago. With a movie every year, you sort of have to have your hands in multiple and then you have Rebels too, and then what's going on with Battlefront. You know, it's really an awesome time. But yeah, no, I mean, our line is more or less fully developed for episode 8. It's going to be awesome.
It is good.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really good.
I know that's all you can say, but yeah, that's really cool.
I can feel the PR eyes on the side of my head. Like, I can tell you so much. But you are right. We are well down that line.
Yeah.
So it's a year away.
It is.
It's a year away.
Yeah, and you've probably been working on it for like 6 months now, something like that, at least.
At least, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So with Rebels, how a lot of the design changes come season to season. What kind of lead time are you put into? Are you given awareness for that? Like between season 2 and season 3, Sabine changed her costume and things like that.
And obviously, with any type of production, you have early art. You have lots of discussions, and we'll get informed what we need to in terms of, hey, these are the basic beats for this season. This is what's going to happen. This is this character, this character, this character, this event, all that kind of stuff. And then they start sharing art with us, and there's got to be a certain point of asset that we can use to kind of replicate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's the same with movies. As I say, it takes kind of 12 to 18 months to make a toy from concept to shelf.
Yep.
Same with the TV, and the production time is a little shorter because there's not so much post production. But we get to know early, but we need to have a certain amount of assets before we can really do justice to the character. But they inform us early, so we can have discussion about who we're going to do, who we're not going to do, which vehicle, etc., etc.
So what's like the relationship like? Who are you working with in Lucasfilm? Is it part of licensing? Is it part of the story group? Because the story group sort of like has their hands in everything nowadays. Yeah. So it's like, what's the sounding board like, kind of back and forth?
Yeah, well, we have direct counterparts at Lucasfilm who then have direct counterparts within the story team. So there's a very fluid flow of information, and we'll talk and meet with the story team, but we'll also, it goes all through Lucasfilm. But you're right, the story team holds the bastion of the story.
Exactly.
And everything that we do, every film they make, every TV they make, and every product we do has to revolve around the story.
Yeah.
So they are the center, the nucleus.
Some smart people right there.
Yeah, it's wonderful kind of having discussions with them. So and they understand that toy is an expression, and when kids tell their own stories, they understand the importance of that because it perpetuates the brand.
Exactly.
And everyone wins.
Speaking of that, as I went to school, I have a degree in marketing. So like when you're, coming out with either new product lines or existing product lines, what sort of strategies do you take trying to figure out what sort of demographics you want to, advertise this to? Black Series 6 inches, that can go to anybody from 10 years old to, people my parents' age, if they're, still fans, 3 3/4. A lot of people, again, my age and up like to collect the 3 3/4, and obviously that line is more, kids are easy to play with the 3 3/4 and things like that. So what kind of like, how do those decisions come about? You figure out, this is what the package is going to look like. This is, this is what's going to make the purchaser's eyes pop, things like that.
It's a kind of a multi-part question. I mean, it all starts with, trying to understand your fan base and doing research and kind of understanding the fact that Star Wars is this absolute entertainment behemoth, and there's so many people that are interested in it, and it's evolved over time. For instance, we launched the Black Series, and that was like a fan item, right? Like, okay, this is for, we don't really say collector because it's more than collector, but it's, real. But pop culture fandom has become such a more mainstream thing. There's so many kids involved and casual fans. It's really evolved into something that's, a lot more catch-all than maybe originally intended to be. So what was the strategy for one year might evolve and change a little bit for the next year. But, we have really smart people that design our packaging, and, Steve and his team, really think about what the product features are that kids are going to like, and, this line be primarily geared toward kids, but in the case of 3 3/4, kids love it. They play with it. It's an affordable price point. It's easy to play with, but it also stands up to a collector's, stringent needs of great sculpting and great detail.
Yeah.
So we try to get that balance as much as possible. So it's really line by line. It's year by year. It's movie by movie.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we're always trying to drive innovation. Like, we always try to make playing with toys more fun and different than it was a year ago. It's not enough to just say, we have a new movie every year, all we have to do is a standard action figure and we're good to go, you know? It's like, no, we want to do blade builders and create a customizable lightsaber system, you know, it's all things like that. So research, really kind of keeping your ear to the ground and just being inspired and loving Star Wars is what really drives us to do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the perfect thing is now with, you know, how long Star Wars has been around, every single buddy who's working on it, whether they're in a licensee or part of, you know, the actual story of it, they grew up as fans, so they want to see it succeed and keep going and see the new generation keep going and going.
That's a really interesting point, and I feel strongly about this, that you know, people of our age, I'm going to assume we're all kind of a similar age. I'm probably older than both of you. We grew up with it. We loved it when we were 6, 7, 8, whatever, a kid. And we now love it even more. And, you know, for the last 10, 15 years, since the prequels, you know, the sort of, it's the consumer, the audience was much more collector, much more kind of our age. That's changed completely. That's I would say not gone, but there's a whole new load of people at the party. And they are boy, girl, mum, dad, 7, 8, 43, 32, 96, and that audience is massive, and we have to respect that. If we don't pass on the collecting bug to our kids, which I don't know if you've got kids, I've got kids, you've got kids, which I do. My little daughter Bethany is insane on collecting. Like, it'll die, it'll go away, and I don't want to see that happen. And we owe it to kind of get very deep. We owe it to our children to teach them storytelling, to teach them play.
That's the big thing.
Which will then move into collecting. So, you know, 5-point articulated figures, they are for kids. They are. Because when we fell in love with them, they were for us. I totally respect collectors wanting a super articulate, but I also totally respect collectors that understand there's a nostalgia there for them and an ease of accessibility for their kids. Because by doing that, when the kids are our age and we're 92 sitting in our wheelchairs, they'll be collectors, and it'll just go on and on and on.
Yeah, it's like, you know, they have to be able to see the story on screen, and then they want to have something that they can physically hold that represents what they just saw, you know, and visualize. They want to be able to physically visualize it, not just, you know, auditory and visualize
That's how they make it their own. That's how they really celebrate it, you know? I mean, the entertainment speaks for itself, and you experience that, but there's so many. This is the reason that there are so many different Star Wars products out there, because everybody, you know, utilizes to tell their own stories and embrace the phenomenon, you know, with their own angle on it, you know. So.
Okay, that's great. No, I was honestly pretty much done.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this inaugural segment of Star Wars: The Canon Explained on Coffee with Kenobi, a look at all things in the Star Wars canon. In this segment, I will take a look at the stories recently released and take a quick glance at coming titles. There are many interesting themes that have come up in the canon since its inception in April of 2014, and I hope that I can provide a glimpse into that world and answer any questions along the way. Since this is my first segment, I want to take a brief moment to talk about what is the Star Wars canon and why it is so important. In simplest terms, the canon is anything deemed true in the universe of Star Wars, and must be held as fact for all stories that come after it. When the establishment of the canon was announced on April 25, 2014, the only stories that were held as fact at that point were the 6 main Star Wars films and the Clone Wars TV series. Since that point, all published material has been guided by the Lucasfilm Story Group and held as in-universe fact. For novels, this began with John Jackson Miller's A New Dawn. For comic books, the Dark Horse series Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir remains canon, and then all of Marvel's comic line starting with Star Wars issue number 1 in January 2015. Short stories produced for Star Wars Insider began in issue number 149 with David Williams and Mark Williams' story Blade Squadron, and games started with Star Wars Uprising for mobile devices. When the canon was established, there were 128 separate stories that existed, counting all the individual episodes of the Clone Wars. We have since tripled that number with 378 individual stories by my count to expand on our Star Wars knowledge. Fans have been divided over this for quite some time, and will continue to discuss the point, but it comes down to creative freedom over the Star Wars universe while providing one consistent source for a narrative. As the film franchise continues to grow beyond Episode 9, Lucasfilm wants to make sure each filmmaker has the ability to make the film that they want, and not be beholden to too many major events that may happen outside these films. What the new canon means for us fans is interesting connections across all mediums, which we have not seen before. The recent Star Wars Aftermath Life Debt brought in a character from the Princess Leia comic series. Characters such as Cham Syndulla and Saw Gerrera have made their way into various mediums, from the Clone Wars, Rebels, novels, and now even the big screen. We also see themes and ideas planted in one medium and expanded upon in the next. I personally believe in a more organic discussion of the Star Wars universe. While I do talk about the timeline quite a bit, I discuss it in relationship to other stories, not as a strict linear bar. The current method of storytelling has many stories on top of each other. For example, the early issues of the Kanan comic take place at the same time as the end of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. However, it is easiest to talk about these stories within spans of time, and I use the feature films as waypoints in our journey to understand the larger context of the stories in the Star Wars universe. Here is a quick look at recent contributions to the Star Wars canon. Covering the time frame between Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and 4, A New Hope, perhaps the biggest recent release is Ahsoka, a young adult novel by E.K. Johnson. This book gives us the story of Ahsoka, taking place between her departure from the Jedi Order and her appearance in Star Wars Rebels. Many questions about this former Jedi Padawan are explored in this novel, and should be considered an essential read for those who love this character. Star Wars Rebels came back this month for Season 3, with the premiere episode Steps into Shadows, putting Ezra in charge of a mission to acquire some new starfighters for the Rebellion. Following episodes include The Holocrons of Fate, pitting Kanan and Ezra against Maul and his evil scheme. The Antilles Extraction, which saw the return of famed pilot Wedge Antilles and how he joined the Rebel Alliance. And finally, Hera's Heroes, where Hera comes up against their new foe, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Between Episodes 4, A New Hope, and 5, The Empire Strikes Back, Marvel's Star Wars issue number 23, The Last Flight of the Harbinger, Part 3, brought us our first real story that involves Luke, Leia, and Han together, reliving the classic feel of A New Hope. Marvel's Darth Vader, number 25, saw the epic conclusion of this series, which carries us through Darth Vader's character development between these two films, adding so many more layers to how we can enjoy the story from the original trilogy. Marvel's Han Solo, issue number 4, pits Han against an unknown traitor, while he tries to compete in the Dragon Void Run, a famous starship race, while simultaneously completing a secret mission for the Rebellion. The time frame between Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, and Episode 7, The Force Awakens, was quiet over the last few weeks. But fast forward 30 plus years, and we have Marvel's The Force Awakens adaptation, issue number 5, which continues to showcase this film in comic book format. These are the canon stories that have recently been released, and there is much more to look forward to on the horizon. In the realm of comic books, Marvel comes back on the scene on October 26th with the release of Star Wars issue number 24, Part 4 in the story arc The Last Flight of the Harbinger, as well as Poe Dameron issue number 7. This issue begins a new story arc which should help draw out the narrative for this ongoing series. Poe Dameron issue number 8 comes out shortly afterwards on November 2nd, followed closely on November 9th by Han Solo number 5 and The Force Awakens adaptation number 6, the last in each of those miniseries. In our short-form stories, Titan Publications' Rebels magazine comes out with issue number 7 on October 17th, giving us 2 new comic stories that take place during the Season 2 timeframe of Star Wars Rebels. This medium has always been a fun quick read and can sometimes add a lot of depth to the lore by giving a different look at these characters. Again from Titan Publications, Star Wars Insider number 169 will release on October 25th with the short story Turning Point. At this point, we know the story takes place shortly after Return of the Jedi, and I look forward to a new short story, which tends to be where a lot of experimentation in Star Wars storytelling happens. Lastly, we have a new novel on its way, with Catalyst, a Rogue One story, out November 15th. The novel will provide some backstory that will greatly enhance the appreciation of the Rogue One film. It seems the time period of this novel may be around the era of the Clone Wars, which could do a lot to tie the story of Rogue One in with elements from the prequel era. In addition to my work with Coffee with Kenobi, I produce YouTube videos at the channel Star Wars The Canon Explained. I release a timeline update video on the first of each month and cover individual stories in the canon each week. Recently, I've looked at the short comic stories from the Star Wars Rebels magazine, covered Star Wars, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy, Marvel's Han Solo issue number 3, and have finished up a look at all the interludes from Aftermath Life Debt. Head to StarWarsTCE.com to check out these videos. There are two things that I love most about the current approach to the Star Wars canon. One, finding all the different connections between the different books, which aid in building the larger connected universe. The other point is looking at the entire Star Wars universe holistically, not just at its individual stories, but at the larger landscape of what's going on. I spent some time thinking about the time frame between episodes 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and 6, Return of the Jedi. This is an area of the canon that is currently underexplored, and one has to wonder if there just aren't that many stories to be told, or if this time frame is being saved for something else. A good portion of the book Battlefront Twilight Company does take place after the Battle of Hoth, but has little to do with our main heroes. Moving Target, a Princess Leia adventure, the young adult novel, does take place between these time frame, and covers the acquisition of the Imperial shuttle Tidarium that was used to bring the Rebel forces to the Endor moon. From the reference book Ultimate Star Wars, we find out that Lando Calrissian's maneuver that was performed at the Battle of Tanab actually occurred between episodes 5 and 6. So we know that the search for Han Solo was not the only thing that was going on during this time. I look forward to the story group exploring this time frame further, whether it be comic books, novels, or Star Wars story films, or perhaps even an animated series. I am very grateful for Dan and Corey allowing me to explore my passion with these stories, and hope that this segment will provide you with insight into the expanding universe that is Star Wars. My name is Jason Brame, with Star Wars The Canon Explained. You can visit my YouTube channel for a look at stories in the Star Wars canon and subscribe to get the latest updates. I can be found on Twitter at StarWarsTCE. Feel free to send me a message and ask any questions that you'd like. And don't forget to listen to Comics with Kenobi for an in-depth look at each of the Marvel comics mentioned here. Now back to Dan and Corey and the rest of this month's episode of Coffee with Kenobi. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Well, hello there again, my Coffee with Kenobi friends. This is your friendly Force Ghost guide, Nick Deco, with everything Star Wars video games for the month of November, which includes everybody's favorite holiday, Black Friday. But first, let's get to some video game updates for the month. First is the upcoming DLC, Rogue One, for the game Battlefront on PS4, Xbox One, and the PC. That comes out sometime in December. Currently don't know a release date behind this, but it should coincide for those that don't have a season pass with the release of the movie, which is December 16th, or for those that have a season pass, potentially 2 weeks sooner, which puts it at the 8th of December. Right now, strong rumor has it that Jyn Erso and Director Krennic will be the hero and the villain for this game. And that, unfortunately, is really the only details we currently have for this game with a month to go. We know that it will take place on the planet Scarif, which looks like Florida, but really all we kind of know right now are the heroes, the villains, and the planet that takes place. I'm hoping, personally, that we might see some additional heroes or villains, or at least some new skins for characters such as Stormtroopers. Maybe you can play as a Shore Trooper, and the Rebellion. That would be really great to see some new skins and playable content for these characters, including new weapons and perhaps stuff we've seen from the movie so far. But we don't know, and we'll see. Also for Battlefront, we know that there's multiple patches coming for the other expansions from Bespin and the Death Star. Some of it around heroes and their abilities, some of it just around general gameplay. So we know in December will be a chock-full month of updates for the Battlefront franchise. Now, if you're hungry for a more immediate Rogue One content, you're going to have to head over to your mobile device. We know right now that Star Wars Commander has had Rogue One content for the past 2 months, since September, in which it allows you to play as Shore Troopers, ACTs, and Gregorian fighters, along with other planets that are potentially in the Rogue One movie. But EA, who also runs Battlefront, does also run a game called Galaxy of Heroes, which I've mentioned before on the podcast. They are releasing in this month some new content and new characters, and have slowly trickled out some new stuff as well. Right now we're looking at a new character tournament for Chirrut Imwe, which is going to have you able to unlock this character after achieving a certain level in a tournament against other players around the world. And also the ability to purchase what is called character shards from the game for Baze Malbus. So they're releasing 2 new characters in the middle of November. Both we, from what I understand, from Rogue One details, they're best friends and buddies and look out for each other. So it makes sense that they're releasing both of them at the same time. However, right now, you also have the ability to play as a shore trooper from the Empire in the game, and a current tournament is going on for you to unlock Bistan the Space Monkey. So EA is definitely doubling down on some Rogue One content for the month of November in anticipation for the Rogue One release next month. But if that doesn't satisfy your Rogue One cravings, as we learned last week from the Star Wars show, we have, thanks to Verizon and Facebook right now, and as of, I think, November 15th, also on YouTube, the Rogue One 360 Recon Experience. It is a 2-minute 360 experience which allows you to look around the cockpit of an X-Wing, and as it potentially investigates some stuff going on in a sector of the galaxy. I will leave it at that. If you hadn't had a chance to check it out yet, simply hop over to Facebook or YouTube, search the Verizon channel, and look for that Rogue One 360 content. It is really cool and definitely should whet your appetite more for this upcoming Rogue One movie. That is really, I will say, all the updates we have for video games for November. Not much else has come out around Visceral's games. We don't know what's happening around Battlefront 2 or whatever it's going to be called for the sequel trilogy. That should be out sometime late next year, which should coincide with the release of Episode 8. So once we hear more about that, I'll gladly update you guys as we learn more in terms of the next Battlefront and new video game news come December or potentially January. And hopefully next month I will have plenty of time to play the Rogue One DLC and get you guys a fresh pressed review for Battlefront and let you know what I think. Is it worth your purchase individually if you don't have a season pass? Or, as I've said before on the podcast, I think it's currently definitely worth, thanks to Death Star, for you to purchase the season pass, or at least that DLC itself. Hopefully the Rogue One DLC will be the same. But we'll have to wait and see. So on to everybody's favorite holiday very quickly, the Black Friday sales. That's going to happen the day after Thanksgiving here in the good old United States. We have a couple of different things that are coming out for both Battlefront and Lego The Force Awakens in terms of sales. It looks like from early release of these Black Friday ads, both these games will be heavily discounted, between $20 to $30 depending on which store you're shopping at. There are no bundles for any new consoles if you want to buy an Xbox One or PS4 with a Star Wars game. Most of those are going to newer games because these are now at least 6 months to a year plus old. But you can get these games, and including then the DLC content, pretty cheaply. If you haven't so already, or if you're looking for gifts for family or for friends or for a coworker or for a partner, significantly cheaper than what those of us that invested in the beginning to bring you lovely reviews on these things, or really just to play them, did at the outset. So if you haven't picked up these games, if you're thinking about it so far, I would highly recommend checking out your Black Friday ads and seeing where you can get the best deals. But again, you're looking at both Battlefront for every console and the same with Lego Force Awakens for every console to be heavily discounted, anywhere between, I would say, 50 to 60% off, which is really great for some games that are really fantastic. And definitely worth the value of your time and your money, and if you want to play in the sandbox that Disney and Lucasfilm has currently created for us, thanks to Rogue One and The Force Awakens. Now, if you're also looking for something that's a throwback, and we'll have to say that because it's no longer being made, the Disney Infinity series, I did get a chance to check out my local GameStop recently and did see that they had a bunch of both used and still fresh in the box characters and sets from the Star Wars and Disney Infinity series. I don't know about sales for those currently. I haven't seen anything coming from the GameStop or Black Friday ads, but it might be safe to say, if you're a betting man or if you're a gambling Wookiee, that these will also be pretty discounted when it comes to Black Friday and the days after Thanksgiving leading up to the winter holidays. So if you haven't picked them up yet, if you're looking for stuff for family, friends, kids, stocking stuffers, etc., this would be a great place to check out and go, along with other retailers that still might have some left on stock. I haven't seen many at Target recently, though I haven't checked out Best Buy. There still may be some left and around that may also be discounted when it comes to the holiday months of November and December. So do yourself a favor, check them out if you haven't picked those valuable pieces up yet that you're still missing, or you want to pick them up for your kids in the future that can't play them yet, but you want to save them for them. Then that was a good time to pick them up. So that really brings me to the end of my segment for the video games for the month of November. I just want to remind everybody that in December we're going to have a new Star Wars movie, if you totally forgot, and we're also going to have a new DLC content that's going to allow us to play in that sandbox for the new movie. Just like we did last year when Battlefront came out with the Battle of Jakku, allowing us to get some early head time into what the movie is going to be about. The same with Scarif and Battlefront. So this is a great time to be a video game player, to be a Star Wars fan, and to have so many different outlets. Maybe it's not as many as we would like, but definitely a lot of different elements to play in this world that Lucas and Lucasfilm have created for us and Disney have brought back to the big screen. So it is a great time to be a Star Wars fan. It is a great time to play some video games. I hope everybody has a wonderful November, and may the Force be with you.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 59 is Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. Much has happened between Seasons 2 and 3. We are just now starting to see the ramifications of the end of Season 2 on the crew of the Ghost in Season 3. Joining us on this topic is, of course, fan favorite, Coffee with Kenobi's favorite Jedi, not named Obi-Wan, Freddie Prinze Jr. Welcome back, Freddie.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Fantastic, man. How about you?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm glad to be back. It's been a while.
It has. We're just going to jump right in. We know Kanan's blind. We get that. That's well established.
Is?
Yeah, well, I don't want to spoil it for you, dude, but he is. So, but he's a Jedi, though.
You're going to wreck Westworld for me next, you big jerk.
It's true. So he's a Jedi, right? But he's not invincible. So for you, what's the biggest obstacle for Kanan to overcome with his newfound station in life?
I mean, Season 3 is sort of about, I've said make it or break it a lot, sort of leading up to Season 3, but now that people have sort of seen the episodes, I can use the word suffer a little bit more, and you really see him struggle with not just being a Jedi, but with being a man or less of one. There is no cybernetic hand to make everything all better again. I mean, he's legit blind. And even when he sort of finds his new vision through the Force due to the Bendu, he still has to go back to his life. Now he's going back stronger and more whole, but he hasn't dealt with the issues and the feelings for Hera. He hasn't dealt with the training of Ezra. He's not going to be ready for what Sabine's about to go through, and that's also going to start to mold and shape him as he molds and shapes Sabine the way he did Ezra. And then to sort of see the people that he cares about in danger, not that Zeb is a damsel in distress by any stretch of the imagination, but when your enemy is Thrawn, you're in a lot of trouble. When he sees the danger that these characters, Zeb and Rex, and even Chopper to some extent, that his presence at times he feels responsible for bringing all this around them, even though I don't feel that's the case. Kanan does. So you'll really see him. It's not a feel good answer, but you'll really see him suffer and struggle throughout Season 3. And take a lesser role to some degree while he's dealing with all this crap about being a soldier again, when the last time he was a soldier, it didn't work out very well, losing his sight, having feelings for someone, and being in a situation where you can't act on any of them because you're at war and everyone in the galaxy wants you dead because you happen to be part of a dying species, basically. Like you're the Komodo dragon and they're Marlon Brando trying to have the final meal on you, like that storyline from The Freshman. Like that's what being a Jedi is post 66. So it's all this stuff is going on with him, and so he takes a lesser role in the crew. You've already sort of seen it at times.
Oh, very much.
This season. And that's not on accident. That's not, oh, let's give time to someone else because that's what's fair. That's not what the Clone Wars did. That's not what Rebels has ever done. As these characters earn their stripes, so to speak, their storylines come into play, and you'll see Sabine's storyline really take a center point of our story, of our show, of all the characters. She's going to become very, very special this season and further down the road. And that's who Kanan is going to start to assist as the season goes on.
You've seen that too. Sabine is very much coming to the forefront of everything, which people have been wanting for a while. And, story has to evolve. The pieces have to come into place. I've definitely noticed that Kanan has taken a side route. But I'm glad it's not, like you said, I'm glad it's not a happy answer, because then there's no power in the narrative. There's no power in the poetry of what's going on with his arc.
Yeah, then it's just me not doing episodes because I had another job or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's whack, and that's not how they work, and that's not how we like to work. We all really respect the project a lot, and everything that Dave and the rest of the team does is organic, and it has a purpose. They put way more thought into it than we do.
Well, Brady, you mentioned the Bendu a little bit and Kanan's relationship with him. How is he the character Kanan needs most at this point in his life?
I mean, imagine Yoda on steroids, and that's the Bendu. I mean, he's the greatest master in the history of the Star Wars universe. The greatest master in the history of the Star Wars universe. And it's not even an argument. Like, you can look at everyone else down the line, and the Bendu is smarter and more in touch with the Force than all of them. As deep as the Emperor understood the Force, and how we've had the whole autocorrect conversation before, his awareness of how the Force will autocorrect. I mean, that's next level awareness of the Force, but he's still not able to be in the middle. And the middle is where power truly is. The middle is where knowledge exists. The guy can open a Sith holocron with his fingertips. You know what I mean? Like, it's nothing for him. It's a toy, as is Kanan Jarrus. And that's how he looks at him. Like, you can see that there's a quiet storm brewing inside. And if he tires of these rebels, I mean, what could he do to that world? Just imagine. You know what I mean? So when you see who the Bendu, you've only seen a taste of him. Like, you've only, remember, he's balanced. He says he's the middle. All you've seen is the good, because all you've seen is him help Kanan. Well, that's not balance. That's not the middle. So logic and storytelling and understanding of storytelling will tell us that there's a storm brewing, and that is who he is, and that is what the Force is balance. There is no good triumphs over evil because love is stronger than hate. That's fairy tales, and Star Wars isn't fairy tales. Star Wars teaches a lot of hard life lessons. If you look at the stories they tell, you can work really hard. You can be an orphan just like Annie, but instead of finding out that your daddy is going to be Daddy Warbucks and he's a millionaire, your daddy's Adolf freaking Hitler, basically, and his name's Darth Vader. So they don't give you that fairy tale ending. They give you balance, and that's what our show plans on giving as well. So when we see Bendu, to me, I call him my coral moose, because he looks like coral reef and a moose, sort of, if they had a baby. But that makes him sound very sweet and like Roger Rabbit, who couldn't hurt a fly. And he's not that. We forget how powerful he is and how balanced he is and how in the middle he is. And that'll start to play out as the season goes. And I think people will fall in love with him as much as I have. He's my favorite character out of all the seasons that we've done. And that includes into season 4 that we record as well. And there's nobody else even close.
Wow. And you know who else, when I first saw the design, he kind of reminded me of, you remember that obscure toy, the Inhumanoids? Remember that? Kind of looks like that Metlar, that huge giant lava monster.
The huge giant lava. I don't remember. To me, he was kind of like the Rockbiter from the Never Ending Story. That's who, when I first when I first saw sketches of him that Dave showed me, I was like, dude, never ending story. Rock on. He's like, shut up, Freddie. Shut up.
Oh my gosh. I love that we've had a Marlon Brando and an Annie and a Neverending Story reference already. We're just about 10 minutes in.
Yeah, man. I've seen a lot of weird movies.
Look up
and
the
good
Humanoids. I'm sure you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. It was around the G.I. Joe era.
A toy or a cartoon?
It was a toy and a cartoon. It was like a Hasbro thing as Transformers was kind of, in G.I. Joe, were sort of fading a little bit. Kind of when Serpentor came to power.
No, I'm trying. They thought I knew what it was, but that was Herculoids with Bleep and Bloop, and that was a whole different. That was a whole different thing.
Yeah, that was good stuff too. All right, so let's transition over to Ezra. I mean, he's the one I think that is. I mean, he's always been interesting, right? But so much has changed in him. I mean, he's got a new haircut and a lightsaber. So what? That's just cosmetic. But he's already been.
Well, kids think it's cool.
Well, of course, you know what I mean. Of course. Oh, I do too. I have my hair like him right now. Just kidding. But he's like, he's been tempted early in season 3 by Maul as well as by his own power. It's probably fair to say, I guess, that there's much more in store for him and what can Kanan do to help him. And I also want to point out too, I think that Ezra is also experiencing blindness, but his is metaphorical.
Sure. I mean, I think you can totally go there. And that'll go back to balance, which is what we're talking about. But one thing we need to remember is a master is in no position to save a Padawan. They aren't. That's attachment.
It's not authentic.
Their whole purpose is to teach the Padawan self-reliance at the cost of anything. If you watch Clone Wars, you learn that with Luminara. So Kanan will never, that's the lesson Kanan has to learn, is you can't save him. He's not yours to save. So where they're at now takes us back to the middle. So as Kanan's strength in the Force is growing exponentially in one direction, Ezra's is growing at that same rate, if not faster, so that he can sort of catch up and balance the relationship between him and his master on the dark side. I mean, you said temptation, but we're past temptation when he's opening holocrons. Like, we're past that. That's temptation is that first conversation where, you hear that great, who goes there? Ezra Bridger, and he's so scared, and he's talking about, this is the key to knowledge. And do you know what knowledge is? No, tell me. Like, he's so sweet, and he's reaching for the red apple, basically. That's what it is. It's that knowledge is that sin. And then he gets the ultimate lesson, which he gets 2 great lessons back to back. He gets knowledge is power, which is a great lesson. And then he gets a lesson from Bendu, which is once a secret is known, it cannot be unknown. And those are the types of things that, like, we try to teach our children, right? Like, those are the warnings we give kids. And Ezra is now no longer a kid. He's in that sort of pubescence now. He's in his teens, and he's ready to rebel and reject the lessons that he's been taught and go towards those temptations. And in the real world, it would be drugs or gangs or some kind of hustle or con. And that's what a lot of kids get drawn to, especially kids who didn't have a parental force in their life. In his case, because they were friggin' arrested. It wasn't his fault. So he's due for this type of sort of emotional experience, and it's the balance to Kanan's growth in the Force. So they're still, even though Ezra's sort of in dangerous waters, oddly enough, they're still good for each other. It's when both of them are getting incredibly strong and powerful and confident that you have to worry. Like, Kanan isn't confident. It's Ezra who is. But when Anakin and Obi-Wan were confident, it was ghost time for one of those cats. Like, somebody had to go because they were imbalanced. And so their relationship is still solid because Ezra does need him and Kanan does need Ezra.
Well, we've gone from a Grand Inquisitor to Grand Moff Tarkin to Darth Vader. And now we enter to a new kind of danger, Grand Admiral Thrawn. So what separates Thrawn from other villains in the season 3, and why is he such a unique threat to the Rebels?
Well, we'll look at all of them and then build up. Vader his strength is loyalty, right? Like his loyalty to the Emperor is second to none. And because of that loyalty as a Jedi, he's even stronger as a Sith, right? So he's, as far as someone you have to fight, forget about it. He's number one. The Grand Inquisitor is a T-1000, right? Like he's on a mission. He's Robert Patrick, and he's a force to be reckoned with. But he's defeatable because at the end of the day, he's basically a machine. He's programmed. He can't improvise the way Kanan was forced to improvise because Kanan wasn't trained. The only time he really used his training, he gets called out on it in season 1, and the Inquisitor basically becomes his master for season 1 and teaches him how to wield the lightsaber properly. This wasn't his intent by any means, but the result was the student killing the master, the same way a Sith would try to take over their master as they're an apprentice. Moff Tarkin has resources. That's his strength, and arrogance is his weakness. But he has, the most powerful resource in the galaxy. So that's awesome for him. But when you get into the world of Thrawn, you get into the long-term thinkers. You get into those minds like a Winston Churchill they're seeing things before they happen based off a knowledge of history and culture. And that was the message that Winston Churchill constantly preached to the British government while Germany was rebuilding their forces and preparing for what he knew was a second attempt at sort of taking over the world. And he warned, because he was kind of an a-hole and a drunk, but change is a scary thing. And when people want to rock the status quo, it's a frightening thing. So he's not going to be loved by everyone, Thrawn, including his own people. And you've sort of already seen the descent there. But he's so far ahead of them in so many different ways. Like Sigmund Freud would say, the alpha, the beta, and the omega personalities are the three major. And we have all three, but there's always a dominant type. Most actors and artists are beta personalities. They're very susceptible to compliments and criticisms. They get their feelings hurt on Twitter a lot when people say bad things. And they get their feelings made to feel amazing when people say good things. Most athletes these days are betas as well, but those superstar athletes are alphas, right? Like Kobe Bryant, who you say, oh, you suck. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And you say, oh, Kobe, you're the best. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Like, your opinion doesn't matter. He already decided how he feels about himself. The beta waits for confirmation to decide how they feel. So you tell an actor they're great. They go, oh, I must be great. You say they suck. They go, oh, I suck. They cry. The omega personality is the long-term thinker. You compliment them. You say, oh, you're great. They just want to know what you want. You tell them they suck. They want to know what the motive is. Like, oh, did I sleep with his girlfriend in the 90s? What happened? So that's sort of the omega personality. And we all have all three, but there's a dominant personality trait. And Thrawn is the omega. He's the one looking at the end game. He's the chess player when other people are playing checkers. And they're great at checkers, but it's just not at his level. And you see him lose his temper, which he's allowed to do because he's forced to deal with people who are intellectually so inferior that at times you lose your patience. Like when you see somebody lose their patience with their kid and scream at him, or when I was growing up, smack him. Or you see that person that can't speak to the dog and correct the dog with positive influence, so they have to use a negative influence to train the dog. There's different styles, right? So you see him even lose his patience then, but at the end of the day, everything that you do, good or bad, he takes note of. Like Curt Schilling used to literally between innings of a baseball game, write down with an ink, pen, and paper in a notebook, write down every pitch he threw to you. This is right after the at-bat, right in between innings. Every pitch he threw to you, where it was, whether it was a ball and strike, and how you reacted to it. So that the next time he saw you 3 months later, he would look that up, learn from it, and annihilate you. Whether his sock had blood or ketchup, I don't give a shit. That's next, excuse my language, that is next level baseball. And that's who Thrawn is. He's an Omega personality. He's thinking end game. And it's really cool to see that kind of a character, because usually that character is in a movie and you only have 2 hours and you don't get much time to establish why they are the way they are. They're just Goldfinger, right? Or they are whatever arch villain they are. But it always seems kind of campy because you don't get any time to watch that technique, that strategy develop over time. And when you have the guts to put a character like that on television, where you're not giving the audience everything about them right away in the pilot first episode, and now there's nothing to surprise you with, or just here's a surprise for no reason, which is what a lot of TV does. This is a very sophisticated storyline for a kid's cartoon at the end of the day, with a character that has very slowly allowed his side to lose fights intentionally just to see what would happen strategy-wise from his opponent. And that's awesome that can happen on a television show, whether it's animated or real action or real time or whatever.
It's almost like he's like a sort of an improvement on the Trojan horse in a way. You know what I mean?
Do you remember the movie The Wiz with Fred Savage?
Yeah.
And like the game, everything was rigged against him, and that scumbag he had to play against just made everything difficult. That's Thrawn. Like, it's his game. He created the world, and we're Tron trying to break out of it. You know what I mean? Like, it just. He's that next level. So to compare him to Vader is weird because they would never fight, right? It's just because he's not that kind of soul. He's an officer. He's not a soldier. And Vader at the end of the day is a soldier. He's basically a Marine, right?
Yeah.
Who's on the ground, on the front line, not all the time, but sometimes on the front line. And Thrawn, went to West Point and has never, put his fists on anyone who probably wasn't a subordinate to him, but he's ordered a lot of deaths. So it's a very different style and different techniques, but they're both pretty brutal.
Well, and you mentioned when we only saw him lose his temper one time so far in season 3, and when he did, you felt like there was some rage that's below the surface that I didn't expect to see, and I really thought it added some nuance to him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's just cool, calm, and collected, then
it's boring.
I don't know. I've seen that a lot, and if it's done well with the right actor, it doesn't have to be boring, but it certainly isn't new. And I like that he's a 3-dimensional character, not a 1-dimensional character. But again, in movies, it's easy to say it's corny, but it's not the writer's fault. Like, they only get so much time, and believe me, I've read enough scripts and written enough scripts to know. The first draft has a lot more character backstory than the one the studio gets their hands on and puts money into. So we're very fortunate that we get to do that. And we have a studio that for the most part leaves Dave alone outside of budget. And, but story wise, they know he knows better than them. Oh my goodness. What are they going to do? Are you sure about this timeline here, Dave? Like, what can they say? You know what I mean? Like, they bought it, but they don't know it. You know what I mean? Like, you can buy the toy for $4 billion that's not your money and take credit for anything you want, but it's the people who made the toy that know how it's meant to be used, that know all the tricks, that it's back to Westworld. It's Anthony Hopkins' world, whether that's the stock brokers or the board of directors invests or not. They're his toys, and he knows how they work better than anyone else. So leave him the F alone. And that's Filoni. Like, we're the hosts, and he tells the stories, and they stay out of his way for the most part. And it's not something I feel uncomfortable saying, because it's not something that happens often, and it should be known that he's a creator / artist / director / writer / wannabe voice actor sometimes on our show. But he's George Lucas's protege. So they know who they have. They know how talented he is. I don't know his contract status, but I would say it's very safe to bet that he's going to be directing a movie for them very soon, because he's that good, and they know it, and they know he's that good. So they let Dave tell intelligent, sophisticated stories, and I watch a lot of animation with people don't like the word cartoon anymore. I don't mean it as a bad thing. It's not Voldemort. It's just I like cartoons, man. I think they're cool, so I say cartoon. It's like saying dude. Like, don't take that the wrong way, dude. That means I like you. But yeah, I see a lot of animation, and the stories just aren't what we do. And every once in a while, what's great about Rebels is they'll make an episode that's strictly for the next generation, right? Like it's strictly for 12 and under. But we only have to do that like twice a season. And the rest of the time, it's a pretty adult, sophisticated storyline all the way through. Like we have our Puffer Pig episode, which is for young kids and makes them feel groovy. And like we just had one last week with our Shadowcaster and our miniatures on there, our mini rebels. But that's for that next gen, you know what I mean? For those kids growing up and they have something to click onto. And then when their dad goes, oh, and by the way, this is Darth Maul and he's from this movie. Check this movie out. And then all of a sudden the kid's hooked. Like that's what it's all about. And we don't have to do that every week, like pretty much every other cartoon on TV. We really only have to do it once or twice a year, and that's it, which is huge.
Absolutely. And you mentioned earlier on that, on season 3, Kane's going to take more to training Sabine more and taking underneath his wing and such. How does that change his style with his disability of sight and approaching that training for Sabine versus Ezra in season 3?
I don't want to say too much, but your question was specific, and I can answer the specific part. His vision won't play a part in their training. As far as the Force and battle goes, you saw what he did to Darth Maul, or just Maul, sorry, through the Force when he wasn't really in control of it, right? Like that was his Rey moment, right?
Yeah.
The Force was more powerful than the Force wielder, and it controlled the lightsaber much more than Kanan did. It's using techniques that Kanan's familiar with, but it's beyond his body. It's like an out-of-body experience, which is always my argument to how did Rey beat Kylo, other than the fact that he took a blaster to the abdomen. But she's not swinging the lightsaber with proficiency. She's swinging it like a crazy serial killer. It's not with any sort of direction or focus. It's literally the Force awakening within her. So as far as battle goes with the blade, the blindness does not play a part in that. It's going to be the best way to compare it without giving things away is I have 2 kids. You're different with your second kid than you are with your first, for better or worse. You're stricter on some things. You're more lax on others. And based on the type of situation the Rebels are in, it's going to be more of the worst part. Like, here's all the things I screwed up on with Ezra, and I'm not going to do it with you. And what Kanan needs to figure out is, were those mistakes necessary for growth, as in does failure promote learning, or were they avoidable mistakes that he's actually trimming the fat off of, and now they can have a more streamlined lesson to proficiency with the blade. So those are sort of the worlds that they'll be living in as that comes to pass. But his lack of sight won't play the part that you may have been thinking, if that's what you were thinking.
It's interesting to think about too, because he's, as you said, he kind of takes that. He's not necessarily taking. Well, I guess he's taking a bit of a side step so everybody can kind of move forward, and I think that's deliberate. And do you think that would have happened in such a way if Kanan wasn't blind, or where do you think he would be? I don't really like doing speculation, but it just kind of came to me.
No, I think he absolutely would still be where he is now if he hadn't have lost his sight. And I think he still would be a focal point. I don't think he would be the Jedi that I hope he's going to become. And I think that journey would be longer unless another sort of trial of whatever happened to him. But but yeah, man, I mean, for me as an actor, you always want your character to die, right? You want to have like a glorious death, like the little rabbit in Zootopia, blood, blood, blood. Like every actor wants that, right? They want that Shakespearean ending. But you always want your character to suffer. It's not fun playing a perfect character. And if it is, then I question your value as an actor. You should want flaws. You should seek out flaws. And if the characters you're playing don't have them because you're stuck on a network show, you should add flaws to your character and make it three-dimensional and real, because that stuff is important. So to me, the blindness is key to Kanan moving forward. It's key to him improving as a Jedi and one day actually, hopefully, becoming a master. Because the stronger he gets in the Force, the easier it is to detach, the easier it is to allow your Padawan to grow, the sooner your Padawan becomes a knight, and the sooner you become a master. If you try to force it, it never happens. Obi-Wan doesn't get that. Who did he have that graduated? You know what I'm saying? Like, right. we call him that, but it's not really until after his death that Luke progresses to the stature at which he progresses to. So, we have to find a way to let go, which is a good lesson in life as well, and let our children sort of fall on their butts, pick themselves up, see they're okay, and move forward. It's just really, really hard. That's why they make movies about it, to make it easier.
Exactly. And that's what I meant before. It's not, to me, the boring part would be if you're just that one note all the time, ding, ding, ding. But once you find the nuance and the layers like you're talking about, that's interesting. And speaking of interesting, how much fun is it for you to talk trash with Sam Witwer?
Sam and I, we had never met after all these years, and he and I randomly had the same like acting coach / I discovered you / I'm the shady first manager that wants way more money than I should get type person, found us both in different small towns. Like he was in like Peoria, Illinois, and I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
That's where we're from, dude.
And she ran these like hustler acting classes, right? And the guy or the actors that she always chose to come with her to California were always like handsome young men who kind of looked like me and Sam. Like Sam and I joke that he's Freddy 2.0, like new and improved Freddy products. But so we never knew this about one another, and or he knew about me because he was with her after and like heard stories, right? And so we were randomly at a meeting, or not at a meeting, at a recording, and he was coming in from mall. And I was like, hey, man, it's good to finally meet you. We only talked on Twitter, and that's bullshit. And we should have got together before this. Excuse my language again. Sorry. And we sat down, and he starts saying, no, we have a connection. And he told me this story. And ever since then, he and I sort of clicked and have become really good friends. And we're about to run a Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons on Facebook Live. And he's gonna run it. He's gonna DM it, and we're all gonna be Star Wars characters. And I think he can run a group of up to 6. I think 5 was probably the max, but I think he can handle 6. And if we can get 6, I'm probably gonna bring Seth Green in, because he's done a little Star Wars voice action in his life, and his wife's actually done a D&D with Sam before. His wife Claire Grant has done one with Sam before, and I might sneak her in too. But we may even get some of the Rebels cast. I think we'll get Vanessa. Taylor said he'd be down. I think Steve and Mary, his girl, if they can come. That's amazing. And I don't think we'll get Tia to come. I don't think I can convince her to get into D&D.
Well,
she has a life and a boyfriend. Should leave her alone.
Well, if you want 2 caffeinated, charming podcasters to join you sometime, we're available.
Man, it was pressure just to get me to get Sam to do 6. I can't go 8 deep, man. He'll quit.
I want to jump back into the World of Rebels really quickly. I want to ask you about Kanan's mask that he wears and how you felt when you first saw that, and what do you think that does for him as a character? Just the design of it alone.
For me, it starts the establishment of his relationship with Sabine and how it's changed over the first 2 seasons. It's her artwork that's on the front of it. I don't know if I can say what the imagery represents. I think Dave has said it, though. Has Dave said anything about owls to anyone?
He's not said what they are for him. He said they're very powerful, and I mean, obviously.
Okay, then that's all I can say.
Yeah, don't say anything. We don't
I'll just.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we'll just say tecolote for life. So Sabine has done the artwork on Kanan's helmet, and the fact that he's allowed it to remain there, and you have to assume that he's gotten grief from Zev and Chopper about it at least, and that he's okay with it being there and is at peace with it. I think you've seen that their relationship has grown, and he doesn't look at her as I don't want to make it sound like he ever looked at her as something less than worthy. But I don't know if that would have flown season 1 if like he got his shoulder piece and she had like tagged it all up. He'd be like, "Yo, you're gonna clean that up, right?"
Exactly.
So now that you see he's sort of matured and grown a little, I think it speaks more to their relationship than anything else. I personally like him without the mask because I like seeing the scar. I think Cyrano de Bergerac was an important story. Miramax one time wanted, when I was like their golden boy, Harvey Weinstein comes up to me on the set of, I did 3 movies for him. It was on one of them. And he says, hey, Freddie, listen, that was more his brother. No, that's Harvey. His brother sounds like this. Hey, Freddie, what do you like, this poster or this one? I go, I don't know, this one. He goes, that's right, because it's 10% bigger. But anyway, so his brother Harvey comes up to me and he goes, Freddie, we're gonna make a movie, and we're gonna remake Cyrano de Bergerac starring you. And I'm like, hey, that's kind of hardcore. Like, I don't want to have to live up to the Steve Martin Roxanne version, but yeah, man, I think I'd be down to do that. I said, I know a great prosthetic guy, this dude, Matt Mungle. He did Sarah's Michelle Gellar's head in I Know You Did Last Summer when it got chopped off. And he looks at me, I swear to God, he looks at me dead in the face. He goes, no, we don't need that bullshit, Freddie. It's going to be an emotional scar. And I literally looked at him. I said, what? He goes, yeah, I don't want to mess with your face. I literally was like, I'm not doing that, bro. Like, what are you talking about? An emotional scar? Like, no. Yeah, like he'll feel guilty. He let his brother drown. I'm like, dude, this is getting worse. Like, what are you talking about? Needless to say, they never made this movie. But yes, I like his scar. The point of it is I like him without the mask more because I like seeing the scar across his eyes.
Well, 2006 had a lot of fun things come from you. Some grilling books and some online gamings and some hosting on TV and such. We're getting kind of towards the end of the year. What do you have in store for 2017?
I don't know, man. You never want to talk about an idea before.
Oh no! Heck no.
It comes to fruition, because to like release the energy, it doesn't jinx it. It just sort of, when you're out there making it and selling it, it becomes less special for some reason. So I've never been one to want to say, "Oh, I have this movie coming out, or I have this TV show, or until it's done," because then it's like. I don't know if it's more pressure when you talk about it, and then if it doesn't happen, you don't feel as powerfully about the idea, or if it's something you just don't want to let the magic out. I don't know what it is, but I know I've never been able to throw that stuff out there until I've actually finished it. Like my cookbook, I tweeted out pictures of food that I was practicing for this cookbook. I mean, every other night. But I never said I was making a cookbook, because then all of a sudden that would have felt like work instead of dinner. And if it feels like work and the passion and the love isn't there, it's really easy to walk away. Really easy to walk away.
Gotcha. Yeah, I understand. I think from Dan and I's perspective too, we can kind of get that from being Cubs fans and not knowing what's going on.
Oh my goodness gracious! And my two two of my closest friends are both from Chicago, like born and raised. And I mean, the texts and the looks on their faces, I didn't even care that they beat us. Like, my buddy, like, he brought his daughter, who's 3 years old, to her first Cubs game. And he had been there with his dad when he was 3 years old at his first Cubs game. And they had still never won a championship. And so it was just like the difference of expression on the picture of him with his dad, where like he's just happy to be with his kid, to the one where he's at the World Series with his daughter, and the smile on his face is just it's just night and day. It's like lovable loser to like whack job winner, and it's only a generation apart. It was really, really cool, man. So congrats to your Cubbies.
Oh, man.
And to Doug Glanville, my good friend.
Yeah, oh, really? He's a cool guy. I liked hearing his
He's a nice
analysis.
guy, man. Yeah, he's a good guy. He was my center fielder in summer catch, and he laughed at me every time Ken Griffey hit a home run off me, I would hear him laugh in the outfield. And by like the seventh, he hit like 7 in a row, and I finally turned around. I was like, "Yo, man, are you gonna laugh every time?" And he just started laughing even more. But he was a good guy, man. I started doing some sports radio out here in Los Angeles for ESPN LA, and I was tweeting with him, and we exchanged numbers a ways back. And I said, "Hey, man, would you ever consider coming on the radio?" And he's like, "Radio for what?" And I was like, "Well, for ESPN LA." And he's like, "What the hell are you doing on ESPN LA?" I said, "One of my friends is one of the hosts, and he had me fill in, and they liked what I did, so they asked me to sort of be their filler of ins. And if we dig each other, then maybe we'll go further. But I have to host, and I don't have any guests, and I don't want to talk the whole time, or people will hate me, sort of like these podcasts. So come and break it up a little bit." And he came in, and he was awesome, man.
That is so. Is that streamed, by the way, when you're on in LA?
I think they do. It's on. It depends on like what time. Usually, it's on a channel called Spectrum Sportsnet or Time Warner Sports. I think they call it Time Warner Sports, and they have an online thing on ESPN LA because they have like a couple of those fisheye cameras, and I see them put out clips. Like they did one with me debating football with Eric Davis, Kirk Morrison, and Marcellus Wiley. I'm like, "Let me tell you, scrubs, what's going on the gridiron."
I know you're a big Dodgers guy. I was at Game 1 when Montero hit that grand slam.
Oh my God, man!
That was I don't know if I was going to laugh or cry or throw up.
Dude,
crazy.
The whole playoffs were tons of fun, man.
Oh my God,
tons of fun.
It was great
for everyone, but Washington probably. I think Washington thought they were going to go further.
Or Showalter when he didn't bring in his closer.
Yeah, but that kind of was great. Like that was dramatic. You know what I mean? Like, but I didn't think they were going to move to the next round anyway. I don't think they were favorites in that series. Whereas the Nationals were, and they sort of didn't live up to expectations. So I think if you were a Nationals fan, then you're like, this sucks. And if you're a National, you're like, this sucks. But every other team, sort of like the right team won all the way through the playoffs until the end. And the Cubs were supposed to win that. And, thank goodness for a 15-minute rain delay in momentum.
No kidding.
like rock and roll. Like the gods have been against you for so long. Like for them to give you one moment, not even like an hour. Like we're just going to give you 15 minutes to get your crap together. And you guys are like, let's get our crap together. Boom. Game over.
The English teacher in me was like, this is their baptism. They're going to come back. And it did. I gave everybody in my class 10 extra credit points when the Cubs won, even if they like the Cardinals. I didn't care.
Even if they like I'm taking double points if they're Cardinals fans right away. I'm not even a Cubs fan. That's my distaste for the Cardinals right there. I'd be like, every day every day I'd be like, yeah, you had an A, but you're a Cardinals fan, so that's a B. Next.
Demerit. One kid said, I don't want the extra points. And I said, you know what? I want you to know that the rest of your high school career, your points are better because of the Cubs.
Oh, see, I would have been like, you don't want him? Cool, I'm going to double this Cubs fan over here. I'm going to double his extra credit points, sucker.
It's like, over. You get
Go ahead, put your Redbird back on. You want to lose some more? I'll be like Severus Snape.
My wife's a big Cardinal fan, so I got to walk the line, Freddie.
10 points from St. Louis.
Well, hey, it's It's a blast.
I don't know why I turned into Harry Potter. I'm reading the 4th book to my daughter right now, and she makes me do all the voices, right? Like, and I can't do everyone's voice, but like, I'll have to do Hagrid's voice for her. Like, I have to do that voice. I have for Severus Snape. I just do our AP5 droid that Steve Stanton does, because it's basically Severus Snape, and I'll do that one for him. I do this weird version of Iron Bull for Voldemort, and then just like random voices for everyone else.
Who's
right?
your Hermione?
And for Hermione, well, for Hermione, you just have to be a very proper speaking English girl. And so that's Hermione. And for Ron, you just have to talk down here for Ron, because he's just more depressed about everything. And his brothers are more up here, because they're not depressed at all. But so I have to do all those friggin' voices. I even do like the girls' voices and Professor McGonagall. I do everybody for her. She makes me. If I don't, she literally stops, says, Daddy, I need you to do the voices. She won't let her mom read Harry Potter, because mom don't play that. Mom's like, look, this is the voice you get. If you don't like it, that's that. And so she knows she has Daddy wrapped. And so she'll be like, yeah, we'll have Dad do story time.
That's awesome.
That's so fantastic.
But we're in book 4, so it's Snape City, man. Snape hates him even more than he did in book 3.
Oh, you're going to have a lot of voices before it's all said and done. That's for sure.
Bro, when I read him the first time, the only voice was the one in my head. It's so much harder this time around. But we watch the movie when it's over, and every once in a while she'll be like, Dad, I like your version of so-and-so better than this. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, Daddy still got it.
Nothing better than that.
She didn't say that when she met Gary Oldman's character, though. I lost that battle, and I worked hard on that one. She's like, nah. She's like, nah, Gary Oldman's got you.
I'm trying to think of what we could title a show if we did a Harry Potter show.
Oh my God!
I can't think of any clever drinks that rhyme with go with Harry Potter.
With Harry Potter that rhyme with it?
Yeah,
I mean they had
coffee and Kenobi.
No,
what do we have? Heineken with Harry? Nah.
No, you can't do beer with Harry Potter. Only butter beer works with Harry Potter.
That's true. It's good stuff too.
It would have to be some kind of Madame Pomfrey magic potion thing.
There you go.
In another dimension, your doppelgangers are doing that podcast with.
There you go.
with the dimensional version of what's the kid's name that played Daniel Radcliffe, another dimensional Daniel Radcliffe, and he's talking about Star Wars right now.
That's awesome. That's good. Well, good. Freddie, thanks as always for coming on. Where can people reach out to you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
Yeah, Real FPJR is on Twitter. That's Real FP Junior. And I try to be pretty active on social media, whether you're a jerk or not. So reach out and touch someone. But I might touch you back, so watch out.
Look out.
You and Pablo are usually two of the most entertaining Twitter accounts for sure.
Man, Pablo is funny as hell on that thing, man. His random tweets are the best ones. His random tweets are my favorites. When his informational ones are clever and sometimes witty, but witty isn't my favorite form of comedy. Random is up there for sure, and his random little tweets are always the best ones.
Well, thanks again, my friend. We definitely look forward to what's going to happen more with Kanan and the crew of the Ghost, and hope to chat with you in the future.
Yeah, man. Enjoy this season, and let's talk again when it gets closer to the end and we have more to talk about.
Who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Our topic for show number 60 is the nature of the Force. The inspiration for this came from a series of tweets from Pablo Hidalgo a little bit ago about some of the intricacies of the Force. And joining us on this topic is an actual first for Coffee with Kenobi, a mystery guest. So be sure to send us an email or an MP3 with your thoughts, comments, questions, and opinions to feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. We want to include your insights into the show. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is for you. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or Corey C. at coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes or Stitcher. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date at our Twitter feed at coffeewithkenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, the album is Eye to Eye by Steve Torok.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 59 of Coffee with Kenobi. A huge thank you to Freddie Prinze Jr. for being our guest and discussing the beginning of Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. Don't forget to purchase your copy of Freddie's cookbook, Back in the Kitchen, today.
Thanks again to Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Angela Souse, Mediocre Jedi, Adam Leonard, Christopher Ripley, Swara Salih, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Struthers, Nick Deco, Aaron Harris, Mark Suter, Jesse, and Mike Audette for their contributions to our Coffee with Kenobi Patreon page.
You can also help out the show through our Amazon.com, Fandango, Cufflinks.com, Her Universe, Zach Designs, and Steiner Sports affiliate links on our site. Be sure to check out our other shows in the Coffee with Kenobi family: Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia, which are all here on the Coffee with Kenobi feed.
A big thanks to our media specialist Lisa Dullard, our Coffee with Kenobi bloggers Nick Deco, Jason Brand, everyone who contributed to this show, and to all of you out there who listen to and email Coffee with Kenobi. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on this topic for show number 60, The Nature of the Force.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.